Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, imagine this. The highest court in the land hands down a historic verdict against a former dictator. It's a massive victory for human rights. And then, just like that, they turn around and cancel their own decision. This isn't some legal fantasy. It's the incredible true story of how the justice system itself ended up on trial.
At the very heart of this whole drama is an idea that is, well, the bedrock of justice. You just can't be the judge in your own case. It seems simple, right? But, as we're about to see, this very principle is what brought an entire international ruling to a screeching halt.
And yeah, this isn't some thought experiment. This case literally forced the entire legal world to answer that exact question, and in the most public, most dramatic way you can imagine. And the answer they came up with created a precedent that is still shaping law all around the world.
So, let's jump right into the chaos. You have this landmark verdict against General Augusto Pinochet, the former dictator of Chile. And then, poof, it's declared void. Gone. This had never, ever happened before. The highest court in the UK was basically forced to judge itself.
To really get how wild this was, we need a little bit of context. So after Pinochet's brutal dictatorship in Chile, he probably thought he was in the clear. But then, in 1998, he's in London and he gets arrested on an international warrant. This, as you can imagine, kicked off a legal firestorm that went all the way to the top, to the UK's House of Lords.
Now, Pinochet's lawyers had a pretty straightforward argument. They said that as a former head of state, he had something called sovereign immunity. Basically, he couldn't be touched by a UK court for things he did while he was Chile's leader. And you know, this is a really powerful, long-standing legal shield for world leaders.
But in a truly landmark decision, the court said nope. By a super slim 3-2 majority, the judges ruled that sovereign immunity does not apply to crimes against humanity like torture. I mean, this was a monumental moment for international human rights law. A huge win.
So, just as it seemed like a dictator was finally going to face justice, this completely unexpected challenge pops up. But here's the twist. This time, the challenge wasn't against Pinochet. It was against one of the 3 judges who had just voted against him.
The whole problem was centered on one judge, Lord Hoffman. He was part of that slim 3-2 majority, and it came out that he had these undisclosed links to Amnesty International. Now, why on earth did that matter? Well, because Amnesty wasn't just some observer in the case. They were an official party, actively arguing for Pinochet to be prosecuted.
And this right here is the absolute core of the problem. No one was accusing Lord Hoffman of taking a bribe or anything like that. His link was to a world-renowned human rights group. So this forced the court to ask a really tricky question. Where do you draw the line between a judge's personal beliefs and a conflict of interest?
So the law makes this really crucial distinction here. Pinochet's legal team didn't have to prove that Lord Hoffman was actually biased in his heart of hearts. I mean, that's almost impossible to prove. Their argument was much simpler. The whole situation just looked biased. It wasn't about what was in the judge's head, it was about whether the public could still have confidence in the decision. And this is the test the court used. It's an objective test. They asked, would a regular, fair-minded person, looking at all the facts, think there was a real possibility of bias here? It's all about perception. It's all about how things look from the outside.
And in the end, the other judges agreed. They decided that Lord Hoffman's role, he was an unpaid director of a charity that was run by Amnesty International, was a connection so tight to one of the parties in the case that legally speaking, he was basically acting as a judge in his own cause.
In this case instantly became the new gold standard for what judicial impartiality means. It hammered home this idea that for people to trust the courts, justice can't just be fair, it has to look fair. Even the tiniest hint of potential bias is enough to poison the whole well.
So what came out of this was a really clear 3-step test for these kinds of situations. First, you spot the link. Second, you figure out if that link is significant. And third, if it is, that's it. The judge is automatically out. It's not about their integrity, it's a hard and fast rule designed to protect public trust. No ifs, ands, or buts.
I mean, just stop and think about how huge this was. The court willingly threw out its own historic, game-changing verdict. Why would they do that? To protect something even more important, the absolute, unquestionable integrity of the justice system itself. The whole case had to be started over, from scratch with a brand new panel of judges.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, in the end, this case stopped being about Pinochet. It became about the justice system holding up a mirror to itself and demanding the absolute highest standard. It sent a powerful message across the globe.
The appearance of justice is every bit as important as justice itself.
And that kind of leaves us with a big question for today, doesn't it? In a world where everything is under a microscope, this story feels more important than ever. It really forces us to ask, okay, beyond the courtroom, where else in our society is the appearance of fairness just as critical as the real thing?